Third Chief Deputy Jimmy Jackson,
Here.
Captain Robert Sumner,
Here.
Ryan Flatt,
Here.
Joseph Lawrence,
Here.
Chief Jeff Barnett,
Here.
Medical Director Teresa Jamerson,
Here.
Senior Officer Ashley Lutke,
Here.
Sheriff Christopher Pounds, Leilani Ramos,
Here.
Dr. Kevin Smith, Alberto Valbuena.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Claudia. First thing I'd like to do, I think the meeting, our meeting minutes from, the minutes from our last meeting were emailed out to everybody. I had a chance to read through them and I didn't see any changes. Does anybody have any changes to the minutes, or is there a motion to get those approved?
I'll make a motion to.
We have a motion from Brian and a second from Robert to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
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 No opposed. The minutes are approved. Well, thanks everybody for taking time to come. We get a bigger group on the video conference every time, so I'm glad that works out for everybody and that's convenient. So, but thanks for taking time to join. We're at a point today. Here in a minute, we'll get a little update from each of the committees. I visited with Dr. Smith. He had a conflict and was not able to be here, but I know he and Teresa have worked diligently on some things that he said Teresa would talk to us about in a little bit. And so we'll get some updates from the committees about a couple of things, and then we'll discuss the document and our final draft document. And again, I was not trying to create something of my own for the group. I just wanted to be able to give the TCOLE Commission something from our committee that kind of had a overview and a background and told them some of the problems we identified and what some of our recommendations were. So we put our thoughts on a piece of paper and got that delivered to the commission. So after we hear a review from a couple of the committees and see what's going, we'll talk about that document and get everybody's thoughts, and we'll adjust that to whatever the group thinks is best. With that said, the first document I've got here, I think, Robert, is this one from y'all's committee? You want to talk about that just a minute?
What we did is we just kind of tossed down as far as what early prevention would look like, as far as building a peer support team, identifying a list of resources for not only licensees to have, but also administrators to have, and having a system in place when a critical incident has happened within an agency, and that the officers know what the resources are and the command staff know what the resources are. We did put a generic definition for what critical incident is. And to me, I think that's kind of important so that we just don't, when we put this document together, pushing before the commission, that we don't, back us into a corner where it has to be one of these criteria.
Right.
Because we all know a critical incident could affect me and not affect you, and we're saying
Sure.
thing.
Sure.
Because it's one of those things that we talked about.
Well, to that point, Dr. Smith and I visited at the last meeting partly about that, because if these resources are only deployed to critical incidents, then we miss that. What I mentioned in that big document is what we viewed as the gap.
Right.
And that gap is simply the trauma and the things the men and women in law enforcement see during their routine duties that don't meet the definition of a critical incident, but certainly play into the mental wellness and health of the officer that oftentimes leads to what TCO ends up dealing with when the licensee winds up arrested, and all of those things. Good morning, Director.
Good morning.
I figured the Capitol had you covered up this morning.
So far, not too bad. We'll see how today goes. I apologize for.
No, it could be a shaky day.
It's been a shaky week already.
Right, right.
They called me and I was in Bryan Tuesday, asked if I could be there in a few minutes. No, no, but I can be there in an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm on the way.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The joys of being the boss. Well, thank you for taking time and making time to join us for a little bit. I know, but to, back to your point, I think that's important that we can define that in the document and put a definition there of critical incidents and be clear that it's not just a critical, you know, the peer support and some of those resources.
Cumulative stress that plays a major factor.
Yeah, so it could be a critical incident that triggers those resources, or it could be some of what we heard from Chief Ramirez. Maybe it's just a checkpoint that's doing that. And the resource guide, and I still think that's important if there's a resource guide, because I know in my area in East Texas, I've talked to some of the local police chiefs in our jurisdiction of those smaller agencies we've talked about, and that they don't have the peer support groups like I know our bigger agencies like Austin and DPS and Houston and Harris County that have those bigger peer support teams. So a resource guide for those smaller agencies where they could combine resources and maybe have a local peer team and help them organize is going to be a big deal. Anything else on y'all?
I don't believe so.
Teresa, Dr. Smith said you were going to handle some stuff that I know y'all spent a lot of time talking and working. So thank you for the time you've put into this. And I know you're sincere about it, but I'll turn it over to you a minute for y'all subcommittee. Oh, you're muted, Teresa.
There we go.
There we go.
Our subcommittee was working on recommendations for training. Dr. Kevin Smith and I reviewed the wellness training that already was in place. After reviewing it, we realized that we didn't really need to recreate the wheel. There was some training that already was in place that was covered mental health and basically the things that a licensee in crisis might need to know. What we did recommend is that we put that training following the personnel orientation and field training so that they get it a little sooner. That's where we recommended that we should put that wellness training.
I see. Was there am I wrong on this, or did I understand from Dr. Smith that there was also a discussion? TJ, I guess this mental wellness training is not a part of the mandated training to go from basic to intermediate. Is that correct?
So right now, it's a requirement of the current training unit. Every police officer in the state is having to take it as part of the unit. So everyone in the state will have it. What we were talking about doing is making it one of the third requirement in order to get your basic certificate.
To get the base, so moving it up so they get it to her
Mhm.
point, that they get it sooner in the training.
Right. Right now, you have to do the orientation class, and you have to do your FTO period, and then you move to basic. This would be the third requirement.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's important to include and get that out there, because I guess that 2 year or 1 year police officer is kind of like our 1 year or 2 year old children at home that don't know the stove's hot sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll get that added in there. Anything else, Teresa, or?
No, that was it. It just was important to move that up further so that they get a feel of what could be available for them if they got in crisis earlier. Often we think that maybe they won't run into a crisis until they get good in season, and it might be on their first day.
Right. Well, again, thank you for the time you and your group invested in that. I know you put a lot of time and work into it, and we appreciate that very much.
No problem.
Keep on that class just to make sure it is available on MyTCO. It'll continue to be available, so officers can always take that in order to get their hours, right? Which I think having it available there, people will take it
Sure.
down the road. And then the IRG is available, so agencies can always teach their person. I think is another thing we can stress is that when they get to the end of the training unit, officers need hours. Delivering that course in person would have a different impact than them taking it off.
I think, TJ passed out, the draft document that I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this morning. And I emailed that out to the group, and I wanted to get some feedback or some comments on that, and we can go by section. Again, I wasn't trying to put words in anybody's mouth. I was just trying to compile some of the thoughts we had talked about in here for discussion. But when we talk about an overview, is there any comments about the document or any additions or any thoughts about that? I know Dr. Smith sent me some stuff. Teresa, did y'all have any discussions about the specific document or?
We actually, Dr. Smith and I kind of reviewed it together on a conference call, and we agree with where you're going to put the problems at and what the solutions are. We didn't find anything that we wanted to change here.
Okay. All right.
Very well prepared.
The purpose of that document, I really wanted to identify, I think everybody, I had lots of comments from the committee members after Chief Ramirez's presentation. And I think the checkpoint strategy is not designed, it's designed to support everybody's peer support. And there's some of our smaller agencies that don't even have the peer support in place. So that checkpoint strategy looks different for every agency. If it's a county where you have a sheriff's office with 10 deputies and a couple of small police departments, it may be they combine their resources and have a peer support and a checkpoints program for the county and the group. And I know Chief Ramirez and some of his group has said that they would work with TCOLE on developing, that they would put some training, if TCOLE was willing, that they would put some strategies together that could be distributed. They're willing to come do presentations, talks. He said he was going to fill out an application for the conference to be a presenter at the conference. He said I don't know whether I understood that got done. I don't know, but he said he would do that. There was even discussion about whether is that a 2-hour breakout session or is that a part of the opening forum that had everybody in the room. Isn't there generally a session where everybody's in the room together?
There's an opening ceremony, but there's also, and we're still working on the schedule, the next day, what would be a general session where everyone would attend that general session.
Yeah.
So that would be where it could fit in.
Yeah, he suggested that. He doesn't mind doing what everybody wanted, whether it's a 2-hour breakout or that, but he would love to present during the general session to the whole group. And he doesn't mind having his team partner with y'all to, because how that looks, if it's Ashley at the Austin Police Department, they're probably going to contain that they've got their own peer support. That's a big enough agency. They'll do it themselves. And then you go way out west, it may be multiple agencies working together and assigning representatives and doing it together. And he could stress that, to help do that. And I know at my own agency, I'm interested in there's money out of this session. There's $6 million that's been put in there for mental health. And I did a little digging into that just for the group to know. And I found it interesting that the grant is already, you can go to get an e-grants in the governor's office and it's already explained in there what it is. And I thought, man, that was quick to get that in there because it's not even through the legislature yet and it's already there. And I'm not 100%, don't take this 100% to the bank, but in talking to some folks in the governor's office last session, there was a House bill, the same bill, just didn't get any funding with it. And it looks like some of that stuff may have been put together as related to the last bill, but didn't have any funding and it's still there. And now there is. So that $6 million over the biennium, $3 million a year, there's money out there for agencies, whether it's checkpoint, whether it's a peer support group, whether it's training. There's several things outlined in there, but very few of the agencies know it's out there. So at the conference, that may be a place where we could touch a lot of people to let them know those resources exist. And everybody's kind of quiet. No other.
I would recommend if he's going to be able to go to the TICO conference to make it one of the sessions where everybody's there.
Yeah,
As opposed to a breakout, because then if people, those that are going to attract to it will be the ones that are going back telling their chief, sheriff, constable, hey, you need to check this out. Whereas if it's a breakout session, then you are just going to have your select. I mean, I know going, whenever I see the list of classes, I'm like, nope, right?
Yeah.
Versus, hey, we got to be there, and then have that impact on that. That would be my recommendation for it.
So a couple things to think about. One is, yeah, I agree. If you get him a general session, everyone gets to hear it. And if he has two different presentations, especially in quarter one, he can do that goes over the concept of what he's doing or what the impact is. We get that to everybody, then we get them thinking about talking about the same thing.
And then
he has a longer class that he puts on that goes into more detail that the chief administrators can attend, and some of the people that are there, training coordinators, may not be as likely to attend it, but somebody can get more detail there. And then if he has a broader schedule for the states for that year, right, that's where we're going to get the real impact. When he goes into this agency, the multiple people in the agency attend, and they start talking about building a program around that, where he's doing a 4-hour or 8-hour presentation.
So do that, maybe do that session at the general session that everybody sees and say, hey, for those administrators that want more information on this, we'll be at the breakout sessions on these days, and he could really break it down to those groups a little more.
We can talk to Chief Ramirez about that. When you talk about TICO facilitating this across the state, are you just like helping set up where he does presentations in each region, and then we help notify the agency so they can attend?
Yeah, so something along those lines. I wasn't trying to create. I just felt like TICO has a venue because you're attached to all the agencies and all the trainings at some point, whether it's the police chiefs conference, the sheriff association conference, the bigger conferences y'all are involved with. If there's a way to promote that and get that strategy included and just kind of be a champion for it.
So that's what I think is if Chief Ramirez devises a schedule for the year, like the regions he's going to be in, and we can certainly talk about and advocate that, because one of the big things that Stephen is pursuing right now is, what's the impact of all these small agencies? There's a lot of different impacts, but one of the ones that we've talked about in this group is they don't have the resources available to address mental health and wellness for officers, and that consolidating with bigger agencies or operating with bigger agencies is beneficial. And that's one of the things we can talk about is those larger agencies taking the role or taking the lead in mental health and wellness in their region, right? Developing resources to offer to those smaller agencies, which in some cases should be part of.
I'd even. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand up, Chief. My apologies. Feel free to interrupt, Chief.
Okay, no, sir. I was waiting my turn, and everyone had wonderful comments, so I enjoyed those. Mr. Chair, I wanted to thank you for the summary report that you've provided in encapsulating everyone's ideas. I thought that was wonderful. I just wanted to highlight a particular portion that where I think maybe my input as my part of the committee was encapsulated, and I think it's really important under recommendation number 2, where we've highlighted the importance of providing information to agency heads, to those chiefs and sheriffs and constables that are running organizations, and providing them with information so that they can continue to serve that licensee in a way that this committee is striving for. Currently, directors of agencies are struggling with how do they respond to these situations, what services can they provide, what communications or contact do they continue to have with a license holder post-incident. And I think this committee's done a lot of great work to try to navigate those waters and help those future chiefs and sheriffs and constables provide a path that they can serve that officer, but also serve their organization. So I just want to say thank you for including that in your recommendations.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that very much.
Yes,
How we affect those smaller agencies is such a big deal. And I'll be honest, 35 years along, I just didn't realize how many small agencies had less than 25 people. I didn't realize how many groups that really was.
Vast majority.
And, so that's a big deal.
I'll get you an updated statistic. I think it's 60% is less than 10, but I'll get the actual numbers so we can.
That'd be awesome. So we'll add that to it. Of the smaller agencies, the actual numbers.
Yes, sir. The current one.
TJ, is there any other role? And I appreciate the latitude TCO gave the committee to come up with our own recommendations. And is there anything you think? Is there anything you're sitting over there thinking, man, TCO could really help here, and they're not saying it, or they're putting too much on me, and I wish that they wouldn't go here? Do you have any thoughts about any of that, or?
No, I just think that you'll have more traction with the commissioners if you can talk about what the particular role of TCO will be in this broader vision, right? So we can't do all of it. I think we talked
Sure.
about being facilitators or catalysts, right?
Right.
And that's a great example. I think the checkpoint strategy is a good strategy. And if we can help Chief Ramirez with what he's doing to get contact with more agencies, we can do that. If it's, that we're actually setting up the training and getting the room and doing the rosters and that's a very different role. So I think you need to be clear and
Yeah.
what it is that you expect.
Okay.
And I don't know what Chief Ramirez pictures either, so.
Well, in my conversation with him, and maybe I wasn't clear on that in my document, and we'll go back and try to clear some of that up, is we're not trying to create a venue where you have to set up and take the rosters and set that up. But the facilitation of it and the acceptance of those rosters and the acceptance of the training, whether that's I know there's some TCO numbered trainings for wellness, but not necessarily around the checkpoint strategy. So if Chief Ramirez went out and did that, and we put these trainings on, that it was supported by TCO, the training was accepted, they got credit for it, and those things, we'll clear that up.
And maybe I just need to have a conversation with him about the logistics about that.
Yeah, and I know the other thing that was on his mind is, I know he had a meeting with Chief Rippey and the Highway Patrol. He was going to meet with the Highway Patrol chief and Brian. We connected him with them in discussion about those using the troopers, because they're in those smaller agencies, and kind of being the pivot point to coordinate some of the checkpoint strategies and peer support, and using DPS as a resource for some of that. And I don't know the feedback of that meeting yet, but if DPS helps with that, that would help in the smaller areas around Texas too.
We know, or if that took place, if Chief Ramirez was able to do that at certain locations across the state, who funds that?
Yeah, that's part of the discussion, that whether it was a part of this $6 million, there was even a discussion about some of the associations getting involved and sponsoring some of the training. If TMPA, DPSOA, some of the statewide TP, some of the other groups that might do that too. But I know Chief Ramirez is willing to come to like some of the bigger conferences, chiefs of police, sheriffs, TCO conference, some of those to come do. Now, how the funding comes for that peer support group, I think is going to really dig down to the line level of the agencies. Are they trying to set it up for the county, or is it a bigger agency trying to do it itself, or how we do that? You think TMPA would be interested in hosting some of that kind of stuff and getting involved in that? It's
More than likely, that's something I would have to run up to the board of directors and stuff, but typically they're, pretty good about doing that stuff. It would just, I'm just thinking of, as big as Texas is, to be able to encompass all of that just because of so many small agencies, like from where we're from, the Panhandle,
well,
26 counties, where are you going to do it? Amarillo or Lubbock,
Right.
and then, or you're going to have to do both because of it's so spread out.
And even at y'all's training conference, y'all have a big training conference too. There might be
End of July.
it's probably close enough to that. Y'all's training set, but
Yeah, it is. Like, it's definitely needed. Because I had to do a peer call the other night from a officer that got shot last week And another small agency, and they just don't have, they don't know what to do.
No, that's exactly
after
right.
that.
Even when we had our tragic situation when we had a deputy ran over by the drunk driver, even being a bigger agency, we were struggling with, I brought in, was it Lehman,
Limit, yep.
the Lehman group, to come in to do our peer support afterwards. And it was just a local contact. I didn't know that team existed until it was brought to me by another group. They did a fabulous job, but those are the kind of resources those agencies need to know.
I wonder, could it be feasible to marry, but make the connection with checkpoints and PCIS from Lehman, since Lehman no longer just does it down in Huntsville.
No, we have started taking it across the state.
Yeah.
It's just hard finding the venue to support the program because it requires to have,
Are you on the Lehman team?
it requires to have an area that can house, 30 to 35 people in a setting like this. Then you have to have like 6 or 7, probably about 14 or 15 breakout rooms.
But I mean, maybe not not just for the PCIS, but since Lehman does that and has helped with, I'm sure, other states' versions of PCIS, maybe they can help facilitate around the state for whatever it is that the commission comes up with for that. Just to help with because it is going to be because we have so many involved.
When is, I think like I wrote it down, but I don't have it in front of me, TJ. When is the commission meeting? I'm sorry, June 12th? And it'll be here? Yeah, it will be JJ. But it's in Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Well, some of the notes I've taken for the document so far is get the definition of a critical incident and when resources are deployed. Teresa's addition about moving the train into the front part of that here into the basic part so they don't wait so long to get it. We get that moved up to the front. Actual number of smaller agencies, get that included in the document and really define some clear direction at the end for TCO, what our recommendations are, and maybe the resource guide and how Lehman can be resourced and propagandized. Anything else in that document to put together or any other thoughts on that? We'll work on adding that and redistribute that to the group. And
On the second one, the training on possibly the mandate.
yeah, I was hesitant, I'm in that group personally that says there's plenty of mandated training. We mandate everything from canine encounters to everything. And I know that list is continuing to grow, but I also agree that this topic is of such importance that I'm afraid if it's not mandated for at least the leaderships of the agencies, that because of the culture surrounding this topic in law enforcement, that many won't take it or take it serious.
I don't think you'll have pushback from the chief. Yep.
I don't think he heard you.
I don't think he heard you.
I'm talking about making this a mandated for chiefs, sheriffs, constables. I don't personally think the Chiefs Association would have any pushback on that, do you?
I do not, sir. If you're talking to me, I apologize. I missed the front of it. But yeah, I do not think you will have any pushback. In fact, as being an attendee at the planning session for chiefs for that training, as you were there as well, I think we actually saw great interest in this kind of information for department heads. So I think they're eager and to find this kind of training, and they're looking forward to it.
Well, and in that recommendation, Brian, in number 2, specifically, I don't think there's a training class out there. You know, we found, what was the name? You identified one of the classes about cultural health. Y'all were involved in that already, right?
Creating cultural. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the cultural wellness. So there could be some training classes already out there about the culture, but I'm not aware of a 4-hour training class that talks about kind of that checkpoint strategy about identifying those trauma-related calls that the men and women are going to and the personnel are going to, and putting a program together that engages early in a preventative strategy.
But the mandated recommendation would be for the chief sheriff's constable.
Right.
Okay, we'd be good with that.
Yeah. Right.
And that's just because,
And
I mean, because there will still be some chief sheriffs or constables who'd be like,
right, I mean,
you know, because it's just there, but
See the sheriff's association kind of maybe.
but if you can get I know what our goal is. If we can get the buy-in, because that's where
it doesn't do any
we
good.
gotta have the buy-in here and we gotta have the buy-in here.
100%.
Just infiltrate. all
But
the
if
way
we,
through.
if we train all the line personnel and we don't have the chiefs and the sheriffs buying in, it's not. These programs have got to start at the top. It's got to be the leadership and the agencies that are putting that checkpoint strategy together, that are putting the peer support groups together, that are putting that together. So that's where I think the mandate comes, because if the chiefs and sheriffs coming and get buy-in, then we'll see the other training coming. But we'll have to, in that recommendation number 2 specifically, you know, talking about clear guidance for TCO, I'd like to work with Chief Ramirez and build that 4-hour training block about that checkpoint strategy, because that really addresses the gap we're talking about. When you go to the other chiefs I've talked to, when you talk to them about mental wellness, boy, I got to get something in place for line of duty deaths and for line of duty shootings, but nobody's addressing
Other stuff that's really.
the other stuff that's impacting personnel. So I don't know of a training class that's out there. So Chief Ramirez could work with T. Cole and the team to put a 4-hour training block together. Whether that's I'm sure it could be an online class or in person, or however they do that, if that was supported.
So something to keep in mind when you start talking about mandates, and especially for chief administrators, logistically, it can get tricky. So if you develop a 4-hour class, let's say Chief Ramirez comes up with something, an in-person class and an online module, I think if you start delivering that now, in what will be 25 to 27 training units, and see what kind of buy-in and exposure you get. And then if you want to mandate it, you would be looking at the 27 to 29 training unit. It's pretty easy to do with chiefs and constables, because you don't actually make it a TCO mandate. You just embed it in the limit course that they're already mandated to take, right?
Right.
I think in everything that we've done, when we do surveys for the conference, when we do surveys for other things, when NEMA does theirs, everyone asks for mental health and wellness training. So I don't think there's going to be a pushback. I think if you just make it available, you're going to get the buy-in. The group that we can't mandate as easily as the sheriffs. The sheriffs are bound by the peace officer training requirements. But again, if you can work with like you suggested, the sheriff and the chief deputy both have their own conferences, right?
Right.
And if you can get in a general session there where you're getting in front of everybody, you accomplish the same thing without it being a training mandate. And I think most of the people go there looking for those types of things like you talked about. Even if you do a shorter presentation, a general session, and have a breakout where you go into more detail, you're going to accomplish the same thing without doing an actual training mandate. And it will happen more quickly because you don't have to wait on the 27.
And it puts the role to TCO back to more facilitating this, getting this information to the chief deputies conference, the SAT conference, getting that information to them as available, because they're looking for training.
And we've all seen some legislative sides. We all need training on shooting dogs, right? In 4 hours, everybody's got to do it. Now we've got DA investigators going and doing people that don't need it. Whereas we have the flexibility in this group to talk about how do we actually get to those people. I think there's a more efficient way to accomplish what we're talking about. I think you can do it more quickly and more efficiently if it's not a mandate, and you can probably get to all the same people and get better.
And then there is a lot of people looking for it. To your point, there's a lot of. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons this committee was formed. I mean, TCO.
Every time we ask for it, that is one of the things people ask for.
And the other 4-hour training that was talked about again is the cultural change. And I'm not familiar with that training. Did you sit through it?
Yes, I have. The one in Allen, which is great. The next one is in Lubbock on July 22nd. And we're
Who
trying to
put-
fill that.
Are y'all posting that and y'all putting that on? Is that a TML?
Yes, sir. It's a TML training and Steve Dye and Marcel Brunel are teaching.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna take the one in July.
I may, what are the dates of it? Do you know?
It's July 22nd. I can get if I've got emails for everybody, which I do, I can send it out to you guys.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I wouldn't, but because there might not be, we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. If that class is already there, then again, that's just something PICO can help facilitate. So that's 4 hours of the cultural change, and then we can work with Chief Ramirez on the 4 hours of the preventative strategy.
It's a 4-hour class?
It's either, I think it's actually 6.
Oh, okay.
6. I think it's actually 6 hours, but I'll send you all the information.
When I heard less than 8, I just assumed 4, so maybe it is 6.
Yeah, I'll have to look, and I'll send you all the
They
information.
said it wasn't a full
Flyer,
day.
everything.
And where'd you say it was gonna be?
Lubbock, PD. Yes, sir.
I may go.
Quite the whole.
TMPA, maybe they can go buy dinner at Cables, get steaks at
Yeah.
Cables for us.
Well, I'm already gonna, whenever I feed my boss at the Capitol here in a while, I'll be, oh, by the way, July 22nd, I won't be here.
Check.
Well, I was thinking about wrapping the committee, how everybody felt about wrapping the committee up after the commission meeting, but if maybe we need to wait till July, we'll just go out there on the 22nd. All right, so that's the training piece, those 2 4 hours, and we'll put that in the document maybe to evaluate that class on the 22nd and just use it for the cultural class. And then all we have to do is get with Chief Ramirez about building the 4-hour checkpoint strategy part of it.
Maybe make one. Keep saying here, law enforcement officer, maybe we should say public safety something, because we're here for all the licensees, for jailers and the telecommunicators.
Yeah.
And or police officers. We had focused on that, but we can't forget those other licensees.
Or just the generic law enforcement personnel.
Yeah.
You can also use TCO licensees.
Yeah, just do, right.
People like to leave the simple, we have some stuff where now we're bringing in fire and EMS.
Right.
Need to be the same or different.
And then the last part of that third recommendation is there I know the TCO website's pretty robust, TJ, but maybe have a discussion. Is it feasible to have in the resource section, and I'm going by memory because it's been on there, but in the resource section, maybe coming up with a wellness link that gives links to some of this training and the LEMIC group. So if you were a smaller agency and we communicate that in our all of these trainings, that, hey, if you go through one of these incidents and you're struggling, here's some resources, whether it's the peer support from LEMIC, links to these 4-hour trainings, get some of that on the TCO website, because I know people are going to that pretty regular, whether it's their My TCO or what they're doing. So support group there would be important.
Oh, I mean, I know it comes through on my feed every now and then, but how active on the social media side is TCO? That's the world we're in now.
Okay, you want to chime in on that?
We're always working to be as active as we can. Of course, I'm looking for it. Y'all have something y'all want to put out from this meeting today, of course we can.
So, I mean, and thank you for that. Like in regards to like throwing out, so like DMPA started however long ago, Wellness Wednesdays.
Right.
Thing, just something like that, not every day, because then it gets, too overwhelming for people, but just, a couple times a month, throwing it out, just to get more.
I can tell you that we're looking for more ways to become more active, and part of that was hiring Cade. And so, we want to still stay, within our lane, but nonetheless, I think that can include sharing posts, stuff like that. It's a kind of ongoing conversation with our division that specifically deals with external communications. And so it's sort of ramping up slow as we move along, trying to find our right, where we should be in that lane. We don't want to overdo it and be, in other words, we've got a role to play in that as the regulatory agency for law enforcement. Just like the Chiefs Association has, just like Sheriff Association has, just like the labor associations have, and we don't want to bump too much against it. But I think we do have a part to play in that because we've got a wide audience that goes across both of those, as well as telecommunicators, as well as other groups. And so we're still trying to find that. But to your point, more and more till we get that right balance. And again, Kate's done an outstanding job so far, and we're looking for new ways. And I think some of that's going to be to begin sharing posts from a lot of our different stakeholders that often have competing interests, but nonetheless common interests among the deal. So we're working on kind of building it as we go.
I agree with the chief, and that's part of what we struggled with this resource list that we're going to send with that letter, right? Is that as soon as you start doing that, then you got to maintain it. Fortunately, we found that the Meadows Mental Health Institute has now got a page up for the Blue Chip program that I think is exactly what we needed. And so we can do that. But if we have the TNPA has a really good page. I think I told you, I put it on here. TNPA has a really good page on resource links, right? And I'm sure someone works to maintain that. We don't want to reinvent all that. And we have a partnership with Peer Support Network. And so I think, that's on our website. We feature that prominently. I think we can do updates from them. And if we can drive them to a list there where they maintain that resource guide, not only are they more likely to maintain it, keep it updated, but they're more likely to be trusted, right? Because that is the undercurrent in all this is there confidentiality? Is this going to be tracked? Is it going to affect my license? If I ask for help, who's going to know? And so that's part of the benefit of having the Peer Support Network separate from TCOL is that you can get help. It is confidential. You can get free doctor and get an assessment, but it's not something that your agency has to know about. And so we're also trying to be cognizant of giving them the way to get to the information, but also having some degree of separation.
Yeah, and to your point with your social media platform, great that it's on the website, but periodically there was a social media post that said, "Hey, remember if there's a critical incident or an issue, you've got the Peer Support Network." If TCOL put out that reminder post, once a month,
right? And we have the ability to do targeted stuff. So when they had
Sure.
several suicides in Harris County, we sent an email to the agencies in that area with some input from Dr. Smith and some other people there providing some links. So we have tools available to us.
Sure. If that smaller agency that we've been talking about, if that chief has happened to see the post on the TCOL page 3 times about peer support and the LEMIT group and the Peer Support Network, when he does have wait a minute, there's a place I can go get some resources and maybe it triggered some help. So
and even throwing in on the newsletter.
Yeah. And I think that's where our lane is really going to be is more of a sort of I like the word clearinghouse really, but more of a sort of a hub point where we don't really do that thing, but we can send you in the right direction. Correct. Sort of a central
middleman
clearinghouse. Yeah, exactly. Where if you're not really sure where to go, but you've heard of this one thing, well, you could go to TCOL's Facebook page or TCOL's website, and there's probably going to be a link to it or something. We're certainly where almost like a yellow pages where you could look at it and go, oh, this is it, right? That's what I was looking for. That's it. Yeah, I remember hearing that. And then remember the newsletter or whatever it is, that's it right there. And then go to it. So I think that's where we will end up really kind of being. And again, like TJ said, so that it's not something that ends up where someone is afraid of us because we've got your license, right? That's That's something, and, you know, but we want people to feel safe, feel that you can, with confidentiality, just go there, find something and go, yeah, I'm not really looking for TCOL here, but I'm looking for that. Boom, I can go, but I know I can go to TCOL to find what it is I'm looking for. I think that's where we're gonna find ourselves and then doing this reminder that when we send stuff out, it's just to keep stuff on top of people's mind and where they can go for the resources that they need.
And TJ, to your point, in our final document, we'll come back and clear that up and be specific about how can TCOL help, and we'll put some itemized things in there related to being the hub, the clearinghouse, the resource, advocating to the conferences, and try to clear that part up. And the final chapter we had in that letter dealt with these letters, and I think there's been some drafts surrounding the notices TCOL sends to the licensee or the arrested person when someone's arrested or in crisis. And I guess including some of those resources and ways to help in those notices is also a recommendation. Who put that together, Robert? Was that something you did, TJ?
Jenny and her team and worked with me, and we built this resource guide. On the other side, we found yesterday one page of that will be dedicated to the blue chip program, how to go there, how to get in touch with somebody for free, so it's confidential. Because our goal is to drive them to master license counselor above, someone who can help them evaluate how they got that situation and make recommendations. That would be one side of this. We didn't want to produce a list of doctors to make it look like we were moving certain doctors or requiring them to go to certain doctors. The blue chip program is great now. On their website, you can search by region, you can search different things. And so I think it fills that spot that we were having trouble with. So that would be one side of this. We within the letter and then this 2-page document to this. We actually had an Oscar week for the rest of the guy installed it out for help with resources and went through and had some conversations, and I sent him a draft just to give us some feedback, right? He is in the position of what we're talking about. But for us, he was excited to hear that we were doing this. Encouraged that he's trying to give feedback. Perfect. And there's another letter that goes to the chief administrator. I think Chief Barnett's been really helpful in keeping that perspective in mind. When one of your officers gets arrested, then it's not just a burden, it's also an opportunity. And I want to make sure that chief administrator knows what we have said to have the opportunity to reinforce that from them. Just in the best things to continue and maintain their life. If they want to engage.
Because of Dr. Andy Young in Lubbock found out the other day, another resource in Amarillo who does accept the blue chip program.
As we move into discussion, let's talk just a minute about our next meeting. So I've made the notes and can easily make some of these changes to our final document, but in terms of approving that as a group before the TCOL submission, if that committee's meeting, once we say June 12th, I'd have to look at a calendar real quick, but I thought about maybe coming in the day before.
It's on a Thursday.
The 12th on a Thursday. So maybe coming in on a Wednesday, the 11th, and having a meeting and people could join virtually. We discuss the final draft and approve that. And then I could make copies of it for the meeting on the 12th to distribute. Anybody that, obviously, anybody that wanted to be a part of coming to that meeting, I'm not trying to exclude anybody, but I know it's a lot of travel too, but so we could meet on the 11th, get that final document approved, make some copies for the commissioners here, and then be ready on the 12th, and we'll present it then. Does that seem like a plan, or?
That works for me.
Same for me. That works.
Works for me.
So the only, if you want something to be in their packet, they get a packet ahead of time that they get to review,
Okay,
and we have to have it in by the 21st. It gets compiled and it gets sent to them well ahead of time.
oh, for them,
Right. And so they would have it in their packet to be able to review it. Now, if you want to work on something for your personal presentation, the 11th would be fine. But if you
But
want
if
them
we
to
want-
have a written copy, a prepared copy beforehand, we're probably going to do.
okay,
That's next Wednesday.
So no pressure.
no pressure. You're gonna be at the Capitol, couldn't you just sit in the gallery and work on this and get this?
When you say sit in the gallery,
We can, sure, I'd have to look at calendars and, Melissa, I don't have that in front of me. She'd have to look this up. I don't know. I'm sure that we could accommodate a meeting before that if y'all wanted to, but again, as far as producing a document form, that would be too late.
Well, we can give them a printed copy at the time. I mean, certainly we could do that, but what they prefer, and especially for this meeting, it is an extensive agenda and they have a lot of stuff to review.
Well, there's not are we messing up any open meetings issues if I get a document together before the 21st and distribute it? And we have a quick virtual meeting to put it in the packet, or can we make an approval now to make these changes and submit it?
We can make an approval now to make the changes. I think the issue with having a virtual meeting before the 21st would be, we have to publish it online.
Right.
We have enough time to do that with the Texas Register.
Would the committee be comfortable with making the changes I just went through on the document? Approving that, and I'll get it submitted to TCOL. We'll get it submitted to TCOL by the 21st to put in the commissioner's packet. I'll get it to them and distribute the final document to the group.
I
Yes.
do approve. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah,
Same here.
Yeah, so put that in a motion, Brian.
make a motion.
Second.
So Brian's making a motion that
That you make those.
we make the
changes that
documents,
be
the
approved,
changes
send to-
changes based on what I just overviewed and wrote down and talked to the group about. And that's been seconded. All in favor of that, say aye.
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 No approved. So we'll do that. I'll make these changes and get you a document and we'll get it in their packet by the 21st. And then, all we have to do is be here on the 12th for the meeting then.
Tweaking the pot a little bit the day after is the State Achievement Awards, if you go to that.
Okay.
Tentatively in the House chambers. That will be dependent if they do a special session. So you'll get.
So the 12th will be 9 a.m. here.
Yeah, I said,
Yeah, we'll have to email out the address. I wasn't familiar with the location he said, but I'll email that. We'll get that emailed out to the group. Where'd you say it was?
JJ Pickle. It's also on our website. If you just Google Nicole G.
Off of Burnett.
It's just over here.
Depending on which way you go and come in, there's traffic. So
Yeah, if you want to avoid the traffic, then yeah,
then you're gonna need to
you
ride,
don't- you don't-
you'll have to ride in Chief's helicopter with him
That's it.
to get over there.
Equal issued. Yeah. That was denied in the budget.
We'll work on that next session.
It was-
Jenny, would I send that final document to Jenny? Where would I send that? Who do I send that to?
Yeah, you can
Yes.
send it to me.
Tell me your email real quick.
Jenny, JENNIE. Hold that.
Okay.
That too.
As well.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussion from anyone about any of that? I'll work on that document and get it distributed. And I don't guess there's any I don't see any public comment this time. No public comment. I guess that brings us to a close with a motion to close.
Make a motion.
Okay.
second it.
All right, that closes our meeting. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and I'll get the document. Thank y'all for joining us online. Teresa,
Thank you.
Alberto,
Thank
Ashley,
you.
we'll get that sent out. Thanks to everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.